What's up, YouTube? Murphy Firearms Training here. We're out shooting the Flintlock muzzleloader today. Gonna take this thing apart and clean it. Start with taking the barrel wedge out. We're gonna put a screwdriver right in the little notch in the barrel wedge, give it a little bump, pull that out, set it to the side. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the breech screw as well. Some guns you don't have to take out the breech screw. That's this little guy here in the back. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the lock off. Some guns you can take the barrel off before the lock. With a Flintlock, I always take the lock off before I take the barrel off, and I'll show you why. Okay, so we'll grab this, and you're good. Just prop it up against the chair, baby. All right, so took the lock screw out, and we're gonna pull the lock off. And the reason I'm gonna pull the lock off is to get all this out of the way of the barrel. And I'll show you how dirty that is in a minute. And the other thing I'm gonna do is this gun has a liner screw. Okay, let me bring this up here and show you the liner screw. So the liner screw is right here, and there's basically the flash hole has a large threaded liner because the most common place for this gun to rust is right there. And so you can actually replace that screw, that liner there, the flash hole liner, if it rusts there. So anyway, we're going to take that out, and that just lets me clean. That actually came out really easy. That's usually a little harder to take out than that. That's a good thing. Okay, so set that to the side, and then this should lift out pretty. There we go. Uh-oh, left the ramrod on. Should take the ramrod off first. All right, so we got our barrel assembly, and what I'll show you is that guy falls off. If you pull the barrel out right, it comes off pretty easily. But I go ahead and take that screw out, and I'm going to oil that as well. So here's your breech plug. So a modern muzzleloader, you would take this breech plug out to clean this. This is permanently attached to the barrel. You can't remove it. So the only way to get liquid in here to clean this is through that hole right there. Okay, so we got a bucket of hot soapy water. I'm going to set that down in the bucket of hot soapy water, and I'm going to take my rod. This is a 50 caliber Jag, and this is a 50 caliber muzzleloader. And I'm going to take actually a wet patch from earlier, so it's already wet. Just reuse it. As a wet patch, we'll go ahead and suction. A dry patch, you have to work at it for a minute. I'm going to run it down the barrel. Okay? No. Okay, so we'll run that down the barrel, and as we run this in and out of the barrel, what you'll see, if you can see in my bucket, is you'll actually see my bubbles moving, and that's me drawing water up the barrel and pushing it back down. So if you see in my bucket, my bubbles moving around, okay, that's going to be me pulling. And because I've got a carpeted floor in my den, which is where I'm at, I'm going to be real careful not to pull this rod all the way out with too much velocity. If you give this rod a good old-fashioned jerk, it will sling water all over the floor. And so you'll hear it bubbling and burbling and throwing water. Okay? And literally what we're doing is we're washing the inside of this barrel with warm soapy water. Okay? Here we go. Listen to the air bubbles. Okay? So anyway, pull that out. Set that to the side. Take the wet patch off of it. And voila. Okay, so the inside of the barrel is clean. Now, we want to take a rag, and I'm going to dry where the gun went into the soapy water. Okay, I'm going to dry this real good, obviously because metal and water don't get along so well, right? Take a pipe cleaner, and I'm going to go in to this threaded area here, all right, and try and get that. The other thing I can do is take a patch and roll it up and go in that threaded area. And what I'm trying to do is get the water out of the threads and get the water out of where the flash hole liner goes in. Okay. All right. So feel good about that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to run a couple of patches. So the first patch is going to be a dry patch. And I'm going to run it with my rifle rod here. So put the patch over the top, right? So hold this down where you can see what I'm doing. Hold the patch over the top. Get that off. Get the patch off. Thank you. Okay. And we're going to run that patch, put it over the bucket in case there's a lot of water in the barrel. Okay. And what that's doing, that's getting all that excess water out of my barrel. So that patch came out a little wet. Okay. Now, I'm going to take the barrel, and if you've got an oil that drips, is ideal. I don't have any oils that drip, but I'm going to take my rim oil, and I'm going to really spray inside that barrel a bunch. Now, part of that's because I shoot my Flintlock maybe twice a year, and because they're very, very, very prone to rust. So, because I don't shoot it a lot, I like to keep it very well oiled. I also don't keep it in my safe. It hangs up on the wall as kind of a decoration in our den. So we're going to run this patch down the muzzle and try to soak up most of the excess oil. And some of the excess oil, I don't know if you can see this far back on the camera, some of it came out of the flash hole way back here. Okay, so we got a little puddle of oil back there, and that's fine. But the idea is to get most of the oil out of this barrel. Now, if you're going to go shoot it again in a week or two, you'd leave it drier than that, just like a modern firearm. If you're going to hang it up on brass gun hooks in your den, then you probably want it a little wetter than that. And that's my case. And so then I'm going to take my rim oil and I'm going to go down that side of the barrel, turn it over, go down this side of the barrel. And again, the reason I oil it so heavily is because it is out in the open. It's not in the gun safe with the dehumidifier. And so it's not like a lot of our other guns where it's in that nice controlled environment, but it's actually wall decoration. Also a working firearm, which makes it kind of cool. Okay. So, but I do tend to oil this gun pretty heavily. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to oil this gun real heavily and leave any oil in the flash channel here. Because if you do that, it will not fire next time. So make sure, if you've run a lot of oil down it like I have, that you get in there and make sure that that is spotless. And let me go in here and get my tool. I should have a tool for this. I do. Okay, so, all right, so got that. So the barrel's done. Transition to this little piece here. Flash hole liner. The way you want to clean this, and I hate to say it, but it is black powder, and that thing's caked. And so you're actually going to take it in here and get it wet. And I've got this little flash liner brush, and it's just a little brush, and you're going to scrub it. And well, if I can hang on to it, I'm going to scrub it. And when you lose it in the soapy water, it's hard to find, and it's slippery. And we'll scrub this guy. Okay, so we'll go in and we'll scrub. Okay, and the idea is we're just getting any all right, we're getting any residue that's left. Okay, and I'll dry my hand, I'll dry my flash hole liner. Okay. Take a pipe cleaner and go in and get any moisture, any residue, anything that that's left over, and go in there real good with the pipe cleaner, and you can see it poking out that other end there. And like I say, you want to make sure there's no moisture, get that thing good and dry. And then what I tend to do is I tend to just give it a spray. Just hold it in my hand and give it a spray. And then I'll take the pipe cleaner again. Okay. I'll take the pipe cleaner again and I'll just hit it one more time to make sure if there's any oil residue that I've gotten all of that residue. It should be shiny, lightly oily. If you leave this thing caked with oil, that tiny little flash hole is going to get stopped up and your gun will not go bang. So, and then I go ahead and thread that back into the barrel so I don't lose it, because it is really easy to lose. And it is a flathead screw, so you get it started and then you just tighten it up. Okay, so perfect. All right, now, so that's it. I'm done with the hot soapy water. So I'm going to sit down and finish putting this gun back together. So, if the lock is really nasty, which this one is not, you would dunk it in hot soapy water as well, and then dry it, and then oil it. This one is a little dirty, but it's not nasty. And I'm not going to shoot one for it to get nasty. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the breech plug here, and I'm going to take my lock, and I'm going to give them the breech plug, especially because it's just back there, kind of hanging out in the stock. Give it a nice thick coat of oil, wipe it down, just like you would with a modern firearm, you know. And like I said, I tend to oil my muzzle loaders a little heavy because I don't shoot them super regularly. Okay. And I'm going to just take this, give it a light spray with oil, and give it a scrub. Okay. If this had a lot of powder fouling on it, and the powder would not come off with this light scrub, then I would soak it in water. Okay. I'm going to pull this thing back at half cock. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to get your flint oily. If you get your flint oily, it doesn't like to ignite. So I'll take like an oily toothbrush and scrub the cock above the flint and below the flint without getting the flint oily. Okay, so if you get a lot of residue on your flint, it won't do what it's supposed to do. Okay, but if you don't oil your gun, it'll rust. So it's kind of the other place you don't want to get super oily is the frizzen. The frizzen does not like to be oily. It needs to be dry. So I'll give it a light swipe with the oily toothbrush, and then I'll wipe it with a cloth. And then I scrub the frizzen with a dry cloth before I shoot. That way if there's any oil left on it. So we just get in here and scrub this thing and make sure it's got a light coat of oil everywhere. Okay, something like that. Take our dry rag, dry it all off. Pretty simple, right? Not too much different from cleaning a regular gun. Okay. And on this back side, any wet spots, you don't want to leave a wet spot. Because if you do that, you're going to attract a lot of powder fouling the next time. Okay, so you want to get this thing pretty much dry inside. Get that light coat of oil everywhere, but dry. And by the way, while I'm talking and wiping and looking at how this mechanism works and all that good fun jazz, I'll show you how this works. But so there's your full cock. And then this lever, the trigger attaches to it, and the trigger pushes that up and sets off the mechanism. So half cock is here. Okay, grabs that guy, and then full cock is there. So 2 different parts here. And then, like I said, this pushes down. If I got the hand strength to do all this, this pushes down. No, pushes up. There, if you push it the right way, it works, doesn't it? Pushes up and lets this guy go. When this guy goes, it hits the frizzen and it sparks. And I'll show you all that when we put it back together. But you want to make sure your frizzen is dry. Disadvantage to that is there's a lot of guns that sit on the wall and the frizzen will rust because people leave them dry. Then the last thing, of course, is you want to oil your 2 triggers. These are both plain blued steel. So you just want to take an oily rag and oil your 2 triggers. And I did a video on shooting this gun, and you can see what the 2 triggers do. But anyway, and give a light oil to your stock. You know, make it shiny, make it pretty. And then when you're done, hang it all up. Okay, so here we are. We're done. To put this thing back together. Whoa! To put it all back together, you don't drop it in the floor. So put this guy back on. Okay. Set this back into its channel. And push it back. There we go. Everything kind of pops into place. That's how you know you've done it right. And you put your barrel wedge in. Like I said, every muzzle loader I've ever played with is left to right. Don't know why. Just is. Okay. You got 2 screws. This guy back here is your bigger screw on this gun. For me, when I set the screws out on the table, I put them in the order they went. So the bigger screw went back here. The smaller screw went right here. So back here, right here. Okay, so that's just my own little system to not try to put the wrong screw in the wrong place. And then, once this guy's tightened down and happy, and not over tightened, we'll put this guy here into the gun. Make sure our triggers are both forward and where they're supposed to be. And just press, and sometimes, for whatever reason, it helps to put this guy half cock, to put it in the gun. And if it won't go, this one's loose enough to go. Some of these are really, really tight. If it's tight enough that you can't get it to go, give it a little rap with a rubber hammer. And then you do want this brass, you'll lose these sometimes, this brass spreader washer. You do want that up against the wood so that it spreads the force of this screw out. It's a good way to crack your stock if you leave that off. So, and if you crack your stock, you have basically an unshootable gun. So anyway, and a lot of stocks nowadays cost as much as the gun would. So it's kind of you end up with a parts gun. So last but not least, we'll just make sure this thing sparks. So the way that works, with no powder, just checking the spark, we'll go ahead and close the frizzen. We'll pull this back to full cock. And if you're at the range, you actually pull your back trigger first. Listen for it to click. Okay. That sets the front trigger, makes the front trigger basically a hair trigger, and then look for the spark. Okay. And if you get a nice spark, you know your muzzle loader is ready to shoot, ready to go. It's in good shape. The frizzen's in good shape. The flint's in good shape. And it's ready for your next range trip. So that's cleaning a flintlock. And a percussion gun's pretty much the same. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. See you around.